The state's recommendation, Your Honor, was for Mr. Kendrick to plead to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which was 20 to serve 15. Count 2, the murder reduced to voluntary manslaughter, 20 years to serve 15, and then to the gang count 57, also 20 years to serve 15, all to run concurrent, and the state was willing to null pros all the other counts in the indictment.
So 20 to serve 15 for those 3 charges, and I would imagine they were probably going to make him testify too. So that's where the deal breaker was as well, on top of being in prison for 15 years.
Kendrick and the attorneys associated with you, I want to make sure that y'all know that unlike what happened with Mr. Williams, if you plead non-negotiated to less than all of the charges, there is nothing that the court can do if the state chooses to go forward with some of those charges. So you could not do what Mr. Williams pled guilty or nolo to each of the charges that he was facing. You cannot say, well, I'd like to plead guilty to count 1 and I'd like to plead to the reduced charge on count 2, and then I'd like to just skip the rest of them, because the state can say, well, we're not skipping the rest of them, we're still going to try you for the rest of them. And the state can also say, well, we're not okay with letting you plead to voluntary manslaughter unless you abide by the terms of the agreement. We're going to go forward with the murder trial. So I know that Mr. Weinstein, you and Mr. Apt and everybody else who's been helping know that, but because things seem to have worked out sort of beneficially for some of these other people who have already pled, y'all might think, oh, well, gosh, can't we do something better than that? Given what you're facing, they hold a lot of the cards, and a lot of it is outside of the ability of this court to change, okay? All right.
We understand that, Your Honor. Thank you for advising us.
All right.
So they can't do the NOLO plea like Thug did.
Mr. Stillwell.
So now on to Shannon's situation here.
Your Honor, Mr. Stillwell is also looking at count 1, which is the conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which is 5 to 20 years. He is facing 2 counts of murder for count 2 and count 49, which each carries a sentence of life imprisonment. He's also charged with count 50 of this indictment, Your Honor, which is participation in criminal street gang activity, which carries a sentence of 5 to 20 years. He's also charged with count 51, participation in criminal street gang activity, also a sentence of 5 to 20 years. Count 52, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, previously convicted under 1611-133, which is 15 years consecutive to any count in the indictment. 54, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, which is 5 years to serve consecutive. And count 64, which is another possession of a firearm by a convicted felon under 1611-133, which is also 15 years to serve consecutive. So Mr.